welcome to the stage the 70th Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, and the 42nd President of the United States, Bill Clinton.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to welcome President Clinton to Treasury today to mark the 30th anniversary of the establishment of the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. President Clinton and I have a long-standing shared belief that increasing access to economic opportunity for people and places that historically have been underserved is crucially important, both as a matter of fairness and because it bolsters our country's economic strength. CDFIs play a key role in achieving this objective. They're better positioned than traditional banks to reach underserved communities and offer essential financial services, from home mortgages to small business loans. And over decades, we've seen them become an increasingly important part of the U.S. financial system. In 1997, there were fewer than 200 CDFIs nationwide. Now, there are more than 1,400, holding approximately $450 billion in assets. The CDFI Fund has been a key part of this story. Since its establishment, and across both Democratic and Republican administrations, it's provided more than $8 billion to CDFIs and mission-driven lenders, and $81 billion in tax credits to community development entities. In 2023, it awarded more assistance than in any other year in its history. And one analysis finds that every dollar the CDFI fund invests catalyzes at least $8 more in private sector investment. Behind these numbers are significant impacts on the lives of Americans across the country, and that's been true for decades. But I'd like to focus today on what it's looked like under this administration. Thanks to the CDFI champions in Congress, like Senator Warner, Senator Crapo, and Congresswoman Waters, we've seen the largest ever single investment in CDFIs and also many other actions. When we came into office almost 4 years ago, dying each day, and the unemployment rate was 50% higher than it is now. Households faced the threat of evictions or foreclosures, and small businesses struggled to pay their bills. In response, our administration acted decisively to get workers and businesses the support they needed and to help communities begin investing for the long term. We worked through programs like the Rapid Response Program and the Emergency Capital Investment Program to deploy capital quickly and broadly and to reach low and moderate income communities. A CDFI in Arkansas supported purchasing a building to house a new family health clinic in a county with particularly poor health outcomes. A minority depository institution in Florida provided loans to a manufacturer in Puerto Rico, which became its municipality's largest employer. In Texas, the CDFI and MDI originated loans to consumers with no or limited credit history so they could avoid predatory lenders. These efforts helped drive a recovery that was not only historically fast, but was also historically inclusive. The record growth in new business applications included a surge in applications in Black and Hispanic communities. Black and Hispanic unemployment rates fell faster than in previous recessions and reached near historic lows. And the gap between urban and rural unemployment rates narrowed significantly. And CDFIs and the CDFI fund didn't just play a crucial role in the recovery. As we recovered, they also helped tackle long-standing challenges to help drive economic growth. Last June, I announced that the CDFI fund would provide an additional $100 million over the next 3 years to increase the supply of affordable housing. This $100 million will come from payments we're receiving from Emergency Capital Investment Program investments. So it's a creative way to make our dollars go further. And just last month, the CDFI Fund's Capital Magnet Fund awarded nearly $250 million to 48 organizations for the development of housing and community facilities. This will result in more than 26,000 affordable housing units. And last month, the CDFI Bond Guarantee Program made the largest issuance in its history. Funds will go toward owner-occupied homes in Mississippi and Alabama, rental housing in Minnesota, and commercial real estate in New Mexico, among many other uses. And I'm very glad to share that today, the CDFI Fund is awarding an additional $76 million in technical assistance awards to more than 250 organizations to help them build capacity to become certified CDFIs in carrying out their crucial work. As we step back and reflect on today, it's undeniable that the CDFI Fund has played a key role since its establishment in 1994 and continued to do so in our economic recovery and now in our medium and long-term economic agenda. It's also consistently benefited from support from both parties, such as through the bipartisan Senate Community Development Finance Caucus, chaired by Senator Warner and Senator Crapo. And CDFIs are recognized as a key tool to increase opportunity, not only by many in both parties, but also by the private sector. Over the last 4 years, many of America's largest companies have together committed over $1 billion in cash deposits to CDFIs to increase their liquidity and ability to lend in underserved communities. And Vice President Harris has been crucial in leading this work. There's no question why there's such widespread support. The CDFI Fund has helped revitalize and strengthen communities across this country, benefiting all of us. Well, President Clinton had the foresight to see this potential 30 years ago with a powerful vision of driving economic revitalization and community development, including in rural communities across the country. And he had the determination to help set this all in motion. He began calling for the creation of the CDFI Fund as governor of Arkansas and championed the legislation creating it shortly after becoming president. It passed with overwhelming bipartisan support, and he said on that occasion, "We've got to find ways to reach into the isolated areas of America to bring the promise of America." Ultimately, this is what this whole idea of community development financial institutions is all about. Just over 2 years later, I was fortunate to join President Clinton's White House as chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, and was honored to have the opportunity to help him advance this vision. Now, 30 years later, I'm proud that the Treasury Department is carrying forward that legacy and strengthening and expanding the CDFI fund's work. And I strongly believe the CDFI fund must be equipped to continue this crucial work. President Clinton, thank you for your foresight and for your determination. We are glad to have you join us at Treasury today to mark this anniversary and affirm the CDFI fund's tremendous importance for communities across America now and in the years to come. And it is now my pleasure and my honor to turn the floor over to President.
Well, first, Secretary Yellen, thank you for inviting me back to the Treasury Department for this very important milestone, and for letting my memory wander back over the years. I just have to say this, I was thrilled when you became Treasury Secretary. And I remember so many of the meetings we had when you were a member of and the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. And I wouldn't pass much mass muster today in the current political environment, because I liked it when I had people working for me who disagreed with me. I like being advised by people who knew more than I did about everything. And you were one. And you've been one great Treasury Secretary, and I thank you for it. I don't want to get into an analysis of the current political situation, but I will say this, it's very interesting, and it must be frustrating to some of you knowing that you played a role in what will clearly be the largest number of jobs created in any four-year period in the history of our republic. And you may wonder why people aren't happy with you. And the answer is, no matter how many jobs you created, if you created 50 million new jobs in 4 years, inflation would affect more people than the new jobs would. And what we really need to think about is, how are things out of whack in America, and how can we create a rolling prosperity where people are all treated equally? And that's how I think of this 30th anniversary of the Community Development Financial Institutions. In 1983, when I was a young governor, and we were having our annual Governors Association meeting in Washington, one of Hillary's friends from college, Jan Piercy, who many of you know, I'm sure, said, I want you guys to meet Muhammad Yunus. And he and his fellow Bangladeshi Rahul created the two greatest microcredit banks in the world. And both became good friends of mine, based on a morning breakfast that basically made all the sense in the world to me. And I wondered how we were going to create enough jobs in rural places like Arkansas, which already were beginning to face an economic downturn. And I knew when the Cold War finished, we would really see a significant alteration of jobs. You know, my hometown in Arkansas had like 37,000 people, place I went to high school. We had factories downtown with everything else, and it was a national park. We had all kinds of stuff going on. But there was no place for these little people to go when the big public funds ran out. And that morning I was sitting with Muhammad Yunus drinking coffee, carried away then. How long ago was that? 40-something years ago. As I am now, by the incredible enthusiasm of this guy. He's always thinking about how we could democratize finance and how we couldn't build shared prosperity no matter how hard people worked unless they had access to functioning capital. So when I went to meet Eunice that morning, the only thing I knew was that Jan Piercy was over here had told me about what the South Shore Bank in Chicago was doing and how following this model they had funded Croatian electricians and black carpenters to save the South Side. And I knew it would work in the rural South. So I backed into this. But I just finished a little turn through rural America in the last election season. And it reminded me all over again that intelligence and the ability to work and the commitment to family and community, they're pretty well evenly distributed throughout the whole world. But financing and opportunity are not. So the great thing that you have to deal with the Treasury, which is a fascinating problem, is how do you maximize the availability of things that otherwise would not be available without overdoing it and contributing to whatever inflationary trends have to be in the economy. And I have enormous empathy for you because nobody's had to deal with inflation in 40 years in America, which should explain why it was so jolting for people. And the CDFI fund, I believe, has helped everybody from abandoned urban neighborhoods to rural communities to Native American communities. And I still think the model is really important now. We're fixing to see an enormous boost again in America's economic prospects as we go from 60 to 100,000 infrastructure projects across America. As we see what's happened with the CHIPS Act. The Syracuse community in upstate New York is going to generate through Micron about 60,000 new jobs alone. This thing is going to change the future and face of America. And what we do, the lessons we learn, and whether every American has a fair chance to be part of this prosperity will depend in part on what those of you who are career employees do and those of you who are political employees, what your successes and interests in with the CDFI fund. Because it is designed basically to equalize opportunity through otherwise unavailable access to investment capital that, as you heard the Secretary said, has about an 8-to-1 return on investment. There aren't very many handy investments that you have, otherwise you'd all be rich working somewhere else. That can give you an 8-to-1 return. So, I believe that we have to be thinking about now, 30 years after the creation of this fund. We have a model that clearly works. We're moving beyond the inflationary problems. Fuel is already down. If we don't make it worse by getting rid of solar and wind and start having inflation in fuel prices again, we'll be okay on that point. And then we're beginning to get a hold of the housing problem if we don't walk away from the obvious responses. And I want to say that one of the things that I am personally grateful for, I would be remiss if I didn't, is that the fund has worked in all American communities, including Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and other territories. And that means a lot to me. My foundation has been heavily involved, especially since the hurricane season of 2017 in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. And you don't have to have a new appropriation. You don't have to do anything. You just have to put the money in places where people can put it to work. And so I think the main point I want to make is that by any standard, this is a great success. And during the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, President Trump's administration supported increasing investments in CDFI. And we should do it again. This ought to be something we can finally put beyond partisan politics. And if you look at what the Biden administration has done with investments in funds for infrastructure and the CHIPS Act, with more new investments going into politically red areas than blue ones, we need to have that kind of principle. Where is the need? Where is the capacity? Where the capacity meets the need, the tax dollars should go. And I just want to say to every one of you, I am very grateful for your service. And I know that there's been so much change churning through America's social, political, and economic life. It has been disorienting. And I told a friend of mine the other night, who's not quite as old as I am, nobody is, it seems anymore. I said, you know, I always loved change, because I found it fascinating. But I realized I had the equipment to sustain it. Not a lot of personal wealth. I was the least wealthy new president since Harry Truman. But through believing that thinking and working and innovating was the way we could all live. Most people don't feel they have that option. And if there's little to a lot of change, it's a burden after a few years, and it's a burden a significant number of Americans just want to lay down. And some of them may not understand that the price of laying down your burden of dealing with uncertainty may be the loss of liberty, the loss of options, the loss of prosperity. The CDFI is one place that Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives have met now for all these decades to give ordinary citizens not pie in the sky, but practical power to make something of their lives. For all of you that have anything to do with it, I'm very grateful. And I hope that you will use this 30th anniversary year to acquaint more people with it. Because the only way we're going to get the price of housing down is to have more affordable housing. And the only way it's going to work is if somebody is able to actually afford what we say is affordable. This is all very practical, real world stuff, but it will have an enormous amount to do with calming this country down and freeing people, thinking they've done right by their families, they've done right by their kids, they've done right so that they are now free to make the most of their work days. That's how I want you to see what you have done here. It is a great gift to America these last 30 years, but we are now in a position to do much, much more of it at the same time, because we have places that are growing like crazy, but behind the growth, there are all those people who still can't get conventional bank loans. That all these needs can't be met. So go out there and celebrate this and say, here's something Democrats and Republicans have supported. Here's something that's people-centered, that's life-centered, that's about tomorrow, not about yesterday. Here's something we don't have to fight about. We are empowered to work together on. I'll always be grateful that you got me to have coffee with Muhammad Yunus that day. 42 years ago. I'm thrilled that he's even older than I am, and he's in the saddle. A battle I helped him fight from time to time over the last decades. You just have to keep going. And Madam Secretary, I thank you for all the innovations, all the good ideas, but especially I thank you for this, because we have a chance to give people the power every day to change their children's futures and to minimize the amount of insecurity they have to live with and uncertainty. And I thank all of you for proving that service in this national government is a noble and good thing if you show up every day with your head on straight and your heart pointed in the right direction. Thank you.
Excuse me?
Being here, mark the 30th anniversary, what does that mean?
It means millions
Especially
of people
for
across
his
this
lack of-
country
yeah.
are better off than they were before. You've got organizations that prioritize the needs of people who are on the outside of opportunity, and now they have a chance to realize their potential. This is what this has meant to this country. It's awesome.
And no one's doing that more than Hope, frankly. This organization that serves people who are often outside places where capital often goes. But as the president said earlier, talent exists there, the opportunity has it, and Hope is bringing them that opportunity.
I appreciate it. It's good to have leaders who understand that and help make it happen.
Are you worried about the upcoming administration that there might be a reduction?
The people strongly enough. I think even though we didn't show it perhaps on election day, I think we'll show what this country's made of.
Thank you very much.